Hello everyone and welcome to another episode of Rated Puzzles Grind on chess.com. As always, I'll try to solve the puzzles as quickly as possible and then talk about the solutions. So let's begin. Wow, so this is a pretty interesting puzzle. Initially it seems like maybe there could be some forced checkmate. Well, it kind of is unless he sacks the queen, but really the position is quite scary. I only have my queen and some pawns, and the opponent has a queen, a rook, and a knight. So it all seems very scary. Unfortunately for me, like these checks don't really work. He just blocks the knight or whatever, or just moves away, and I have nothing. And this is the only interesting check because he can't block with anything, and the pawn covers these squares, and then the queen would cover the g file, so really he has to go to h3, and then it gets a little more interesting because, well, you can't really check with the queen. Like, of course you have actually you have no more checks with the queen. Like, you can't check on this diagonal, and you can't go down anywhere. So really the pawns is all you have. So now this is the only check really, and it looks promising. It forks the king and the rook at least. So really it makes sense to calculate it, and then actually the queen covers these squares and he can't capture the pawn, so he has to go to h4. And then really I thought maybe there's some forced mate, but there isn't really much else to do. You could capture the rook. Like, I wonder what the computer evaluation is. I mean, you're still down a knight, so I suppose it's quite horrible, and he's promoting, so capturing the rook is horrible. You have to go for the much better move, which is the pawn check, and really you have no other checks, so it's quite natural. And if the queen doesn't sacrifice, well, it's the only move really, because otherwise it's checkmate. The pawn is covered by the other pawn. This pawn by the queen, and yeah, he can't really move anywhere, so he has to sack the queen, and yeah, it's also checkmate unless he captures, which he can. Then you just take the rook with the check, and yeah, you should win, although it's actually not easy at all. He's promoting, and it's quite scary. Apparently, you say I don't care because you can also. So I definitely imagine losing this endgame, especially if I would be low on time somehow. But yeah, this is quite interesting. Yeah, and apparently here you have to promote, and yeah, it becomes quite crazy. So yeah, a crazy position even after the correct solution, but yeah, pretty nice puzzle. Wow, what a beautiful mate! Really, yeah, very interesting puzzle. The king is kind of almost mated, but yeah, it's not so not the simplest way to finish the mate. Really, you have only two checks with the knight. You also have the pawn check, but the issue with the pawn check, first of all, is that I think the king just runs up and you can't really do anything. Yeah, like doesn't really matter what you do. It's really not great. The king just escapes and you can't mate him. So yeah, this check just doesn't work, and then you are left with these two knight checks, and it's quite interesting. Well, first of all, like check with the rook doesn't work. He just takes the knight, and yeah, it's lost. But yeah, then you're totally left with only these two checks, and yeah, The first one seems quite interesting because then the king is kind of almost out of squares, but he just goes to f3, and really you have no way to check him, and yeah, it doesn't work. You can try taking the bishop, but you're just down a queen for a knight, and it's lost. So yeah, this doesn't work. And then really the only other idea I had was oh, this check, and yeah, if that wouldn't work, I think it would be lost. But fortunately, it works because well, after this check, the king is totally out of squares unless he goes to f3. That's the only option. And if he goes to f3, then really you have this rook check. I mean, it's easier to see that here you just have this check, and it's just checkmate because the rook covers these squares, the knight covers that square, and the pawn covers these squares. So and the king covers that. So it's just checkmate if he doesn't capture the knight, and if he captures the knight with the rook, really it's quite similar. But then this f3 check actually starts making sense because well, he has to capture once again. The rook covers this, the pawn covers this, and is protected. So he must go to f3, and that's kind of just a bait because you very conveniently have this rook, and then these rooks just dominate these files, and he has to go to g4, and then conveniently you just have the check on f4 supported by the pawn, and yeah, the rooks just checkmate the king with the help of the pawn. So yeah, very beautiful forced mate. Wow, so this is really difficult. I have no idea. Nothing seems to actually work, so I really must be missing something. Yeah, so really cannot see any move that would do anything good for me. So yeah, I suppose I'll just have to guess, and yeah, I wonder what the solution might be. Yeah, so none of these seem to make any sense. So my guess is that somehow I maybe sacked the bishop and it somehow winning. Well, yeah, I really have no idea. So let's just try to understand the solution. All right, and apparently it has something to do with this move, but what the heck might the follow-up be? Wow, this is crazy. Even after that move, I don't see anything. So wow, this is insane. I feel like it might be this because nothing else makes sense, but I'm trying to see the whole sequence, which is difficult. Yeah, that seems good enough. I'll just have to guess that that's somehow the solution. Or maybe I have a forced mate. No, I don't. Yeah, this seems good enough. I will play this move most likely. Yeah, I'll just try. And if he does this, I just take the queen and I think I win. Yes. And now I think I take the bishop. Yeah, I don't see anything much better, and I don't think that I'm getting mated, so it seems good. Wow, 16 minutes, 51. Yeah, 51 seconds. This is insane. I don't think I've spent so much time on a puzzle during some episode, and yeah, not on a while. But wow, it's crazy to gain rating from such an insane puzzle. Like wow, seeing all this. Yes, I was trying to make like this knight move work somehow. Calculate the queen sack, but yeah, it just doesn't do anything. And really thought maybe this is somehow promising because I saw if he takes the bishop, it's not so great for him. I have some play, but I mean if he doesn't take the bishop, like apparently yeah, it's not even the best move. He can play like queen d7, and yeah, I really didn't see how this would be good. Apparently, I have to bring the queen back, and yeah, it's just a very, very complicated position. But yeah, I was hoping that he would take the bishop, because then I would get some opportunities, and apparently, yeah, like he doesn't even take it. He plays such a move, and then here I also wasn't too sure what to play, and this move seemed to be quite nice, because yeah, I saw pretty much the sequence which happened in the solution. That first of all, he can't capture with the bishop because this is just forced mate. So yeah, and otherwise, if he, well, he can't go down because the queen covers that diagonal, and he has to capture it, so he can't capture with the bishop, so he has to capture with the rook. And then here I wasn't immediately sure. I thought maybe moving the queen there is an option, but he just blocks with the rook and you have nothing, so I discarded that. And then yeah, the rook check left, and then this is the only move. He can't block with the rook because this is checkmate, and yeah, he can't block with anything else, so he has to go here. And here, yeah, like for a second I thought maybe this would be an option, but he can just go here and uh, or just take the rook. And yeah, apparently I just have nothing in this case, so yeah, it's really bad, so I didn't go for that. And then you have this knight check conveniently, and he can't go back to the h file, and it's a knight check, so it's not blockable. And yeah, what I saw was if he goes here, I would have this move. It's a discovery check with the queen, and then doesn't really have that many moves. If he goes back, then yeah, I'm not too sure what I would have played here. This is just winning somehow after he blocks, and yeah, apparently it's quite complicated. If he plays this, yeah, it's a long sequence. I won't try to calculate that, but yeah, I just thought that it's somehow good enough, and yeah, it's somehow decent and winning. But yeah, fortunately the puzzle didn't go for this, and instead he just took the knight. Well, you just win the queen then, and yeah, if he takes the rook, you just recapture, and you have a queen for a rook and a bishop. So it's not simple at all, and this wouldn't be so easy to win. But yeah, it's considered a winning position. So very complex puzzle, but yeah, nice to see +6 after getting it right after quite some time. And wow, 2701 puzzle rating, so really no wonder it's so complex. But yeah, guys, just stick with the puzzles, and yeah, try to learn from them instead of being in a hurry and worrying about rating. Alright, let's continue. Is the queen trapped somehow? I wonder. So it seems like it's almost trapped, but doesn't quite work. Yeah, that's a bit peeling, but maybe there's some solution. Yeah, seems like this should be right. Alright, let's try. Yeah, this doesn't work, but I think this works. Wow. So wow, this took took quite a while, but yeah, it was also very interesting because like it seems like the queen is somehow kind of trapped in this space, but it's not so simple because If you play h6, then this is the only move because, well, the pawn covers that, the knight covers all of, well, it can't go there, but yeah, these squares are covered by my pieces, the bishop on this diagonal, and this other bishop on this other diagonal, and then yeah, that's the only square, h4. And then it might be tempting to play g5, but really it doesn't work. He just apparently, yeah, what I saw was this was not too great, but yeah, apparently it doesn't even have to do that. You can just take this pawn, and yeah, it's completely not great, and not winning at all. So yeah, I thought, what else could I do here? Really, I don't really have any other way to attack the queen besides this rook move, which conveniently is also available. And then the queen has no squares, so the only way he gets out, or tries to get out at least, is by blocking, and the only way he can block is with the pawn. And then yeah, there are some options. You can capture the pawn like 3 ways, but yeah, capturing with the rook doesn't really make sense because he just recaptures with the pawn. I mean, with both of these pieces, it doesn't really make sense because, well, if you capture, he just captures, and well, apparently, sorry, if he was to just take, then it would be a blunder because it would be the same fork as in the solution. But really, if he takes with the knight, then yeah, apparently, oh sorry, he just hangs the queen. So yeah, for that reason, taking with the knight just yeah, loses the game, loses the game immediately. And actually, yeah, I don't think that I consider this when considering taking to the knight. I thought, okay, he takes, and yeah, actually, yeah, I just somehow thought that it doesn't work. Yeah, I don't remember my my line of thought, but yeah, unfortunately, it would have just hung the queen. I don't remember thinking about this, but yeah, thankfully, I didn't play the knight move, and yeah, I saw that if I take here, like, he just takes, and even if I take, it doesn't do anything. But I thought that taking with the bishop makes the most sense, because then really, if he captures, there is this fork winning the queen. And yeah, apparently, maybe the only difference between the knight and bishop might be that, yeah, my queen would hang otherwise. Yeah, I wonder. In this also attacks the knight, so it's quite nice because then you might have some discovery attacks. So yeah, just taking with the bishop is the right way, and yeah, luckily I played it, and not the knight take, just hanging the queen. So yeah, very beautiful puzzle, also quite complex, but yeah, very nice solution. All right, so for puzzle set, let's go for the last one. Yeah, I can't seem to make this work. It seems that the best I get is just an equal position, maybe even losing because I'm down so many pawns. So I must be missing something once again. Oh, I think I just found what I was missing. Yeah, very funny how, yeah, how, yeah, you just consider one check and you immediately see the solution because, well, like, yeah, like the other stuff really requires quite some calculation. So really, there are only two checks, and I spent like yeah, how much? Like 6 minutes considering yeah, this check and trying to make it work. And yeah, apparently it's a draw kind of. I have a slight advantage somehow. The engine says, but yeah, like if you just consider this check, then you see that the bishop covers this diagonal, and the king can't move, so he must take with the pawn, and then this file opens up. The bishop is still doing his job, and yeah, this is just a mate. He can't move, so he has to block, and you just take, and it's a very simple mate. But yeah, seeing it immediately, you have to consider this check, and I suppose maybe when I calculated the first check and I couldn't make it immediately, maybe I should have yeah tried to see if there are other checks. And yeah, I suppose it kind of makes sense to calculate how many checks there are, and then maybe some checks are way simpler to calculate, so you should calculate them first, I suppose. Because, well, here really, if I well, looked at this check for at least a second, well, I could see that he has to take the pawn, and then very quickly you see that it just works. So yeah, maybe the lesson here is that first of all, look at all the possible checks, and then maybe you can somehow sort them in your mind, which are the easiest ones to calculate, and maybe you should try in this order because sometimes the solution is very simple. But yeah, if you spend some time calculating some check which ends up being the most complicated one, then really you risk losing a lot of time and yeah, achieving nothing. So yeah, it's a very nice lesson. Just try and calculate the simplest checks first, and that's the solution. Because I was looking at this, and this is the only move, and then I thought, like, yeah, this is the only move that makes sense, but really he just blocks with the bishop, and I saw that no matter what I do, really it's just a draw because he captures my knight in the end and I capture his pawn. Yeah, and yeah, he then goes somewhere to stop me, and yeah, I can't really make this work. So yeah, it's just a draw, but yeah, if you find the other check, then it's a very simple forced mates. So yeah, very beautiful puzzle, and kind of it's a lesson for the people that spent yeah a lot of time calculating the other check and maybe even went for it. I imagine people who got it wrong went for that check, but yeah, if you just consider the other check, it's all great. All right, so wow, we got 5 out of 5 today. That's quite great. Yeah, enjoying these shorter episodes. Well, this one might end up being quite long because it took a lot of time on some of these puzzles. But yeah, it just feels great to get them right, even if it required quite some time. I believe it's still great because, well, the goal of mine is just to learn as much as I can, to improve as much as I can, and yeah, no matter how much time I spend on a puzzle, if I understand it, then it will stick with me. And yeah, I wish the same for you guys. Just spend more time on quality over quantity. It's better to solve less puzzles, play less games, but actually learn something from it and improve at the game. So yeah, that's all. I'm very happy about today. Hopefully, if you got this far into the video, you enjoyed it. And yeah, I really appreciate it if you're watching. And that's all. If you want, you can follow me on Twitter, and I'll see you next time.